the stroke of 06, as the first light touched the water, a Russian BK-16 fast attack craft sat unsuspecting, tethered to the naval pier in Sevastopol. It was a seemingly ordinary morning, but 6 Ukrainian Beaver strike drones flying low and fast were already scything toward Crimea's southern coastline. Their mission: to carve a massive, crippling hole in the Russian radar shield protecting the bay. In a mere 15 minutes, what looked like another routine drone incursion was about to become one of the most brutal tactical defeats ever inflicted upon the Black Sea Fleet. This was a surgical, high-stakes raid against an entrenched, paranoid defense network. Unbeknownst to the drone operators, 8 miles inland, the giant ominous dish of a Russian Kasuka-4 electronic warfare EW vehicle had just been powered up. The lead pilot, miles away, felt the immediate gut punch of the attack. He nudged his flight stick to the left, but his drone didn't respond. 3 agonizing seconds later, the aircraft finally jerked sideways, nearly slamming into its wingman. 3 seconds of lag might sound trivial, but at 95 kilometers per hour, it translates to 80 meters of blind, uncontrolled flight, the crucial difference between navigating terrain and catastrophic impact. The telemetry screamed an alert. Altitude was plummeting without command. 190 meters, 180, 175. If it hit 150 meters, the drone would meet the unforgiving coastal cliffs. The Kasuka-4 was achieving this by deploying a crushing noise floor. Imagine trying to listen to a whisper while standing directly beside a jet engine at full throttle. The drone operator's signal strength meter, which usually sat at a solid 70 dBm, the equivalent of a perfect 5-bar connection, instantly cratered to a barely flickering 110 dBm, a single desperate bar that kept disappearing. The abyss for the drones was 120 dBm. Hit that threshold, and the control link would sever completely, turning their multi-thousand-dollar aircraft into nothing more than a very expensive, unguided dart. 10 more points of signal decay, and the entire operation would dissolve before the first target was even sighted. But this was a dance Ukraine had rehearsed over 3 years of relentless skirmishes. The lead drone executed its pre-programmed countermeasure, frequency hopping. It began an instantaneous, chaotic leap across 40 different communication channels every single second, following a complex sequence only the Ukrainian command knew. The Russian EW operator watched his console erupt in a blinding array of threat detections. His cutting-edge equipment scrambled to chase each new frequency, analyze it, and redirect its jamming power. The fatal flaw? That process required 50 milliseconds. The drones were hopping every 25 milliseconds. The Russian system was always 2 hops behind, forever swatting at where the targets used to be, like trying to catch a fly that could teleport just as your hand descends. The Ukrainian pilot then initiated a desperate burn-through maneuver. They concentrated all available transmission power onto one single frequency for 2 crucial seconds, effectively upgrading their signal from a small flashlight to a blinding searchlight. The video feed flickered back into life, grainy and jumping like an old 1980s television with terrible reception, but it showed just enough. There was the radar complex, exactly as intelligence had described. 4 vital installations spread across 2 kilometers. But the coast was not empty. Through the static and snow, a new horror emerged. The silhouette of a rotating radar dish. A Tor M2 short-range air defense system had just activated, and its antenna was already swiveling in their direction. If they wanted to complete the mission and reach that BK-16 boat, they first had to survive the Tor. The Tor M2 operator had been meticulously hunting all morning for the characteristic signature of incoming threats: small, medium-altitude contacts moving between 80 and 120 kilometers per hour. They were typically easy kills for his system, but his scope was strangely empty, filled only with ground returns and false alarms generated by passing trucks on the coastal highway. The reason? The Ukrainian drones had adapted to fly in the dirt, hugging altitudes below 30 meters. At this extreme low height, the basic laws of radar physics break down. The sophisticated Tor M2 couldn't differentiate between a drone and a simple delivery van. Why? Because every radar pulse hit the ground and bounced back with such overwhelming force that it flooded and deafened the receiver, making it impossible to spot the tiny, reflected signature of the drone, like trying to find a candle flame placed in front of an aircraft searchlight. The Russian operator, realizing the issue, switched to the moving target indicator MTI mode, essentially telling his computer, ignore everything moving slower than 40 kilometers per hour. That's just ground traffic. The Ukrainian formation instantly throttled back, dropping their speed to a mere 35 kilometers per hour. They became invisible again, moving too slowly to trigger the MTI filter, but still too fast to be identified as static ground vehicles. It was this constant, inventive game of technological leapfrog that was driving the Russian operators to the brink. For every countermeasure, the Ukrainians had developed a countermeasure. Then, physics presented a literal wall. High-voltage power lines stretched across the valley at a mandatory 25-meter height. The choice was stark: hit them and crash instantly, or climb over and become visible. The lead Beaver drone popped up to 60 meters for precisely 3 seconds. The Tor operator's screen exploded with contacts. 6 targets, bearing 247, range 2.4 kilometers. Altitude 60 and rising. His hands flew across the controls, the launcher swiveling in a violent arc. The 9M38 missile erupted from its tube, rocketing to Mach 2.5 in less than 2 seconds. That's 850 meters per second, crossing a kilometer before you could count to 3. But the Ukrainian drone was already plunging, diving back down to 20 meters like a stone dropped from a cliff face. The Tor's missile has a crippling vulnerability. It requires a minimum altitude of 15 meters for its proximity fuse to arm. This is a safety mechanism designed to prevent the warhead from detonating immediately after launch and destroying the host vehicle. Below 15 meters, that advanced weapon transforms into a 165-kilogram inert projectile, a very expensive, fast-moving tennis ball. The 9M338 missile screamed overhead, its seeker frantically scanning for a target that had vanished into the ground clutter. 8 seconds later, it self-destructed in a harmless puff of smoke and shrapnel over an empty field. The Russians, however, were not fools. They had deployed a second Tor battery to cover this exact flight path, but a ridgeline separated the two defense vehicles by 3 kilometers. On paper, this looked foolproof. Each Tor could see 25 kilometers and engage targets from 1.5 to 15 kilometers, an overlapping shield with no gaps. Here, physics delivered the ultimate betrayal. Because the missiles need 1.5 kilometers to arm their warheads and initiate those devastating 30G turns, the system created a 1.5 kilometer radius of dead space around each vehicle. Any target inside that circle was too close to engage. Ukrainian pilots had uncovered a profound, beautiful truth. If they flew exactly between the two Tor systems, maintaining a precise distance of about 1.4 kilometers from each, they could thread a corridor where neither missile could arm. The ridgeline prevented the Tor units from repositioning quickly to get a better angle. It was like walking between 2 guard dogs on chains. Get the distance perfect and neither can reach you. This meant flying perfectly straight for 10 terrifying seconds. No evasion, maintaining an immaculate distance from 2 lethal threats. One drift of 200 meters in either direction, and they would instantly be inside an engagement envelope. At 95 kilometers per hour, those 10 seconds stretched into an eternity. But piercing this gap wasn't just about survival. It aligned them perfectly for the final approach to Sevastopol's harbor, straight toward the pier, where the BK-16 was tied up. They burst through the gap just as a missile launched, passing harmlessly behind them. Clearing the Tor screen meant plunging into something even more lethal. Dead ahead, a Pantsir S1 air defense vehicle was waiting. Its radar had already locked onto all 6 drones, bathing them in targeting radiation. At 2.5 kilometers, they were entering the optimal kill zone. Unlike the Tor, the Pantsir was explicitly designed to annihilate small, low-flying drones. The Pantsir operator, who had been studying the drone's evasive maneuvers for the past minute, finally committed. At 2.2 kilometers, a textbook engagement range, he launched 2 57 E6E missiles simultaneously. This was a calculated tactic. Paired launches force a target to evade in predictable ways. If a drone breaks left to avoid the first missile, it flies directly into the path of the second. The missiles exploded from their tubes at Mach 3, covering the first kilometer before the Ukrainian pilots even registered the launch warning. At 1 kilometer per second, the advantage of physics was entirely with the Russians. The first missile locked onto the third drone in the formation. For 1.5 seconds, it flew on remote control via commands uploaded from the Pantsir's radar. Then it switched to its independent infrared IR seeker for terminal guidance. This is where the entire Russian plan disintegrated. The 57 E6E missile was designed in the 1990s to destroy fighter jets' massive aluminum tubes with engines burning at 600 degrees Celsius, which blaze against the cold sky like flares. These Ukrainian strike drones, however, used electric motors running at a mere 40 degrees Celsius, only 5 degrees warmer than the morning air. The IR seekers swept back and forth in increasingly desperate arcs, hunting for a heat signature that barely existed, like trying to find a single candle flame in a room flooded with stadium lights. The third drone operator banked into a violent 6G turn of force so extreme, the composite airframe creaked audibly in the video feed. The missile passed 8 meters overhead, close enough for the camera to capture the exhaust trail. The proximity fuse, which was engineered to detect the mass and aluminum structure of an aircraft and trigger the warhead, completely failed to register the drone's carbon fiber composite construction. No detonation. It was just an expensive rocket continuing its flight until gravity brought it down. The second missile found the fifth drone. This time, the proximity fuse worked, detonating the warhead 12 meters away and transforming into an expanding sphere of 200 tungsten fragments. Most missed, but 3 fragments tore through the fuselage. The video feed began to spin wildly sky, ground, before cutting to static. First loss. The Pantsir operator immediately launched 2 more. The third drone, still recovering from its 6G maneuver, was unable to evade a second time. A direct impact turned it into a brief, orange fireball of falling debris. 2 drones down in 5 seconds. 4 survivors. The Pantsir's twin 30mm autocannons spun up with a mechanical whine, each barrel cycling at 2,500 rounds per minute. That's 83 explosive shells per second per barrel, filling the air with a wall of steel. The targeting computer ran its complex calculations. Drones at 1,800 meters, speed 95 kilometers per hour, crossing angle 30 degrees, shells traveling at 850 meters per second. The shells needed 2.1 seconds to reach the targets. In that time, a drone could travel 55 meters. The computer therefore aimed 55 meters ahead. Perfect mathematics that assumed predictable flight, but the operators were not predictable. Every 1.5 seconds, they threw in a fresh random input. Dive left, climb right, roll, bank. Never the same pattern twice. The Pantsir's computer required exactly 1.5 seconds of steady flight to generate a firing solution. It never got it. The system was perpetually solving yesterday's problem, aiming where the drones had been 2 seconds ago, not where they were going. The Russian gunner, in frustration, abandoned computer assistance, switching to manual control and walking his fire in expanding spiral patterns, hoping that sheer statistics would achieve what precision had failed to do. Shrapnel began to ping off the composite hulls like deadly hail. A fragment tore through the second drone's control surface, creating a constant, violent left pull. The operator had to fight every second. But even the best air defense system can't break the rules of geometry. At 500 meters distance, the surviving drones dove to just 10 meters altitude treetop height. The Pantsir's guns physically couldn't depress below 5 degrees without hitting the vehicle's own chassis. At that extreme range and low height, simple trigonometry placed the drones into an untouchable blind spot. The 4 survivors pressed through the radar complex. The cannons fell silent, unable to track targets they couldn't physically aim at. The most advanced air defense system in the Russian arsenal had been defeated by basic elementary geometry. The route to the BK-16 seemed open, but true to Russian doctrine, there was always a human, manual backup. 3 Russian soldiers, armed with Igla shoulder-fired missiles, MANPADS, had been crouched between concrete barriers since the first warning, knowing they were the final line of defense. The lead soldier powered on his launcher. The cooling unit hummed as liquid nitrogen super-chilled the infrared seeker to 196 degrees Celsius, cold enough to liquefy air, a necessity to detect the minute temperature differences of an aircraft. He found the lead drone on his sight at 800 meters, waiting for the solid lock-on tone that guaranteed a hit. Instead, his earpiece warbled like a dying smoke detector. Solid tone for 1 second, silence for 2, a weak chirp for 1. The drone's pathetic heat signature kept vanishing against the background. When it flew over the water, which was still radiating the previous day's warmth at 38 degrees Celsius, the 40 degrees Celsius motors completely disappeared. But when it crossed back over land at 33 degrees Celsius, there was suddenly marginal contrast. Water background, no lock. Land background, weak lock. The seeker was hunting for a heat signature that, thermally speaking, simply did not exist. The Igla was designed to kill helicopters and jets with exhaust temperatures exceeding 300 degrees Celsius, not glorified model airplanes with motors cooler than a running laptop. Its seeker expected to find heat plumes, jet wash, anything that screamed, "I'm an aircraft." These drones merely whispered their presence. The soldier fired anyway, a desperate prayer more than a tactic, hoping the missile's proximity fuse would somehow compensate. The missile streaked out, its seeker head sweeping in frantic circles, chasing phantom heat signatures created by a morning temperature inversion, a weird atmospheric condition where warm air rests atop cold air, creating mirages made of heat instead of light. The missile veered toward toward a warm air pocket, then another, then harmlessly splashed into the water 50 meters behind the oblivious drone. The other two soldiers lowered their launchers. If one Igla couldn't maintain a lock in these conditions, they would all fail. They watched helplessly as the 4 drones lined up on their targets. All high-tech defenses were exhausted. At 0:15 hours, the lead Beaver reached the P-18 Tarik early warning radar, the system that could detect aircraft 360 kilometers away, giving Sevastopol 15 minutes of warning time for any attack. Without it, the entire defensive network was blind until threats were practically overhead. The drone dove straight at the massive rotating antenna array, accelerating to maximum speed for the final approach. When it struck, the shape-charged warhead detonated, creating what weapons engineers call the Monroe effect. The copper cone inside collapsed into a hypervelocity jet of metal, moving at 8,000 meters per second, shearing through the structure. 20 seconds later, the second drone lined up on the Nebo-U surveillance radar, the supposed crown jewel of Russian radar technology that could reportedly track stealth aircraft from 600 kilometers and coordinate every surface-to-air missile SAM battery in Crimea. Destroying this was like extinguishing the eye that watched over the entire Black Sea. Every soldier within 500 meters opened fire PKM machine guns, AK-47s, even pistols. The mathematics of hitting a target moving at 95 kilometers per hour from 300 meters meant they might as well have been throwing rocks, but they tried anyway. The drone slammed into the Nebo's phased array, the shape charge turning hundreds of precisely calibrated radar elements into a rain of expensive metallic confetti. The third drone, the one with the damaged control surfaces fighting the constant left pull, fought its way toward the 96 L6E cheeseboard engagement radar. This was the brain of the mighty S-400 system, the command unit that transformed its launcher vehicles from expensive tubes into Russia's best air defense. Without this radar, 32 missiles worth $500 million would become utterly useless, unable to track or engage any target. A Zu-23-2 anti-aircraft gun, manually dragged into position, sprayed 23mm shells in predetermined box patterns. The drone flew through the steel rain, impacting moments later. Secondary explosions rippled through the installation as capacitor banks discharged and power systems failed in a massive cascade. With all primary targets decimated, the final drone banked sharply toward the naval pier. There sat the BK-16 patrol boat. These vessels are the hunters of Ukrainian special forces, typically carrying 19 naval infantry for rapid coastal response. Each loss is one less quick reaction force available to defend against infiltration. Seconds later, enduring desperate incoming fire from watchstanders on board, the final drone struck amidships, detonating just below the waterline. In a breathtaking 15-minute span, Ukraine had delivered a massive technical and physical blow to the heart of Russian air defenses around Sevastopol, effectively blinding their forces and clearing a critical path for the ongoing destruction of the Black Sea Fleet. If you like deep dive in military, please don't forget like, comment, share, and subscribe for more informative videos. Thanks for watching.